You can look at everything we're doing right now. That's what I want. Health services.
Like that.
March.
March 10th. Good job, Chief. Second motion. Is there any further discussion?
May I ask clarification?
Sure.
Take advantage of the first meeting. The board previously approved the agenda, and we need a motion to amend the agenda that was approved to add a new action item. I'm asking the procedure.
Yeah.
The answer is yes.
So do I first need to do a motion to amend the agenda?
Counselor, a motion to amend the agenda?
Yes. Yeah, just the way Mr. Wilson described it would work. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead, Dan, do that. First one is you'd like to.
I make a motion to amend the agenda to allow for a motion to be made under item 60.
Action item to request representation of the health services.
Dr. Phelps is going to second it. Should we call the roll on the motion to amend?
Mrs. Rosewood.
Yes.
Sorry. Dr. Phelps.
Yes.
Mr. Benicasa.
Yes.
Mr. Jones.
Yes.
Mr. Jones.
Yes. So now we have to make the motion, right? Which was the first part that we already have there, Dan. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
You second it?
I'll second that one. Why don't we call that one when we're ready?
Mrs. Rosewood.
Yes.
Mr. Cooper.
Yes.
Mr. Benicasa.
Yes.
Dr. Phelps.
Yes.
Now we have a motion that we're discussing. It needs 3 readings or?
No, we're getting a report. We're getting a.
We've all approved that there will be a presentation on the 10th about health services.
Item F for new business is discussion of board iPads, Google Drive, Jeff.
Just a couple of things. I know on this topic, we kind of added this around from a couple of different angles. It's on, a little bit of the pendulum swinging. I've asked Mr. Whalen to help a little bit and prepare some information that will be helpful to the board members as we distribute our email and things using Google Drive, using Google Apps. I had not asked him to speak tonight. Are you prepared to speak tonight on the show? No? He's working on some things, but what I would go back to what I had talked about previously with these iPads getting pulled out from classroom use here in middle school and being able, just for this meeting, they're pulled out, but they're pulled out in the afternoon and set up. And what I'd like to do is set up, I had hoped as part of our retreat, that retreat's taking a little different format, but possibly in one of the upcoming meetings, we can have a brief little presentation and a brief little training, or at least communication of ways that you can access these agendas on your own, take notes, share it, store it in the cloud in Google Drive, and I'm sorry if I'm speaking a foreign language to some, but basically take your notes on the agenda, store it, and then whether the board has individual, whether there are iPads for the board only that you would come into and log in and grab your stuff, or whether you keep those iPads with you that you operate on. That's really the discussion that I know I'm kind of bringing up something that we sort of took a right turn from, but to me it really is the way for you to best operate using Google Drive and or Gmail and Google Apps to be able to see those documents, use them, access to something coming in.
I'm just gonna say right now, versus the Google system that we have, 2 cents that it's not worth. I just got basically used to getting familiar with the Microsoft Outlook where you can really see your email. It tells you when you've got the arrow that says you sent it back. And on the new Google, I'm not sure if it's sorting by names or by subject matter, but now it's like 5, 6, and 7, all tied into a particular item, and it's not as easy.
You talking about the conversation thread?
Yes.
You can shut that off. I'll send you something, I'm not sure.
If they've got some nice crib sheet.
He's working on
On
that.
that note, other than the presentation, if in fact the board does choose to do that, can we have a PD for the board to teach them how to use what you're giving them?
And I think we should, and that's part of what I want to get to. And the other piece with that is, like one small piece, I'm still using Microsoft Outlook to be the tool that I read my email on.
I tried to get back in, but I couldn't get it. Password.
So, there's some things, and Sean has a lot of it already set up for teachers. That's his job. He's adjusting parts of that to make it understandable and applicable to you as a board. So I just wanted to bring you up to speed as to where we're going and kind of the direction in the next month or so that I think we can get to. And I think it will be better. I really do think it will be better for everyone.
Appreciate giving it to my statewide. I'll get information a little bit easier to see about it. Thank you.
Our next area was the discussion of board retreat dates, times, and topics. Do we have that as far as we're going to Henderson?
Yeah, this was set prior, this was set for the last meeting, not removed. We set up to be announced. The agenda, I sent you a draft earlier today, so once I get the okay on that agenda, we're ready to send that out.
Council, are we okay on the agenda for the 5th?
Sure. You'll see an agenda.
Okay.
Either tonight or
Sorry.
tomorrow.
Okay, thank you. Which takes us to section 7, our informative reports. Superintendent reports, Jeff, please.
Mine is brief this time, which is good. In the superintendent's report, I talked a little bit about the long-range plan, and I indicated that I put some clarifications on the website about where our long-range plan was headed, what we've done so far, which is survey of staff and survey of and discussions with interviews, I guess, with key community stakeholders that Burgess and Burgess use, developed from church and business organizations and elected officials, et cetera. They developed that list. That information is coming together. We're looking at student interviews later this week, and then moving towards the phone interview. But I also tried to, as Mr. Kilroy mentioned earlier, tried to clarify that there are no decisions as far as what is going to happen with open enrollment, whether buildings are closing or not closing. Tried to get that out on all the pages. But I appreciate the board's perspective in gathering the information from the long-range plan. As that gets compiled, you will see it, trust me on that. It is being pulled together and drafts are coming in. The other part related to that I'm kind of helping get pulled together that has a little bit to do with what Jackie is talking about is a staffing analysis, and Dan and I were talking about this today, that's been pulled together by ODE and its representatives. So Dan and I will spend some time reviewing that staffing analysis, and we'll be seeing that piece of the puzzle as well, which is all a big, there's many facets to these issues that we're going through, and that will be coming to you as it gets pulled into a usable form.
So we have a company that is doing the research for us, correct? So when you are doing surveys, whether it be with staff or with community members, I've been told that you need an email to let you do it. And I understand the purposes of that, so people aren't doing it 3 and 4 times. Does that come back as a breakdown of individuals to you or just to them? So no staff member should feel nervous about replying in a
Absolutely. It is going to them, even though the email reminding them, I still haven't quite figured out how they sent out an email saying that was for me. But technology is great at. If you know what you're doing, you can do a lot. But that information is going directly to the research firm. We're getting summary data back from them. No connections to anything as far as individual responses.
Is the board on the list of being contacted?
If you haven't been contacted, no. That key stakeholder stuff was done previously, with the idea being that they're making recommendations to the board.
I would think that key stakeholders, they want our opinion possibly too.
Well,
Usually there's a comment that, and if they don't want it, I'd kind of like to give it to them.
the other side of the coin being, like, you as a board know what your perspectives are. This is information that's going to come back to you. So I didn't, for example, I didn't do the staff survey because I mean, this is information that I don't feel I should be doing. Again, they generated the key stakeholder list. That is not anything that I said to all these people.
Now, when
They
you
said,
presented
"Here's-"
this before, you said that the community was, so it's not every community member, and
There were 12 to 15 key community stakeholders. An email sent to the full teaching and certified staff, whoever had email addresses, we sent those. There's the student interviews that will be coming up, and then there will be a representative sample phone interview conducted next that will be of our entire community registered voters, which is how that typically works. So that is the final piece of the puzzle.
well, so for a registered voter, would we not get that phone call?
Possibly. It's not going to be everybody in the
Oh, I
community. It's going to be a random sample. I think they said they need 600 to make it a valid piece of data based on our registered voters.
I just have one comment. My frustration is that what I was presented to by Mr. Ballmer, and I believe we're probably all in agreement that we're waiting for this Burgess report to be brought up today. I have one comment: why wasn't it done last year? Because the prior board knew this was a contentious debate. Why are we doing this on February 3rd when we have to potentially make a decision by March? And we're seeing all these articles in the newspaper by various people here who are, even Mr. Kardasky said, we have to decide this right away because we have to decide about the route that Lindsay. Not one of us has said we have to decide this right away. We've all said we want the information, we want to be informed, we want to be educated. But I get frustrated because articles go on in the newspaper that are misrepresenting my thoughts. And even today you say that. So I mean, I think, Mr. Steve, you said we should all be on the same page. And, correct me if we're not all on the same page, we're waiting on this report. Okay? But at least that's my assumption. If I'm wrong, let me know. I want to make the best decision. I want to make the most informed decision. I want to have the decision based on the most people, the most inclusive decision. Mr. Palmer told me that I don't have the exact number, 124 of the 128 teachers are aware. I don't know that exact number. It's just a pretty close. I want to know all that information, so I don't want for the community to be told that we were elected to review. This is what we want to do. Review open enrollment. It does not say repeal, it does not say remove. Those words were never in my words. But I get frustrated when the community is constantly hearing editorial articles that are misrepresenting my
Let me just throw something in there, a little different than, thank you, Tom. Can you get our name? Let me ask the board, do you want to be on the important stakeholders, or should we not?
If anything, I'd like to do what at least Jeff did, just read it and see. I would like to at least see the analysis. I mean, I don't have to necessarily take it because, again, we are the five that are going to get down to it and voice our opinions. But I would like to see what the survey is. What is it all about? What is it asking? What?
It would seem to me if they have 15, if they take each individual section, here's where graphing, but they're going to get to these different sections where they graph, it would matter what the important stakeholders that were elected by the community might have an opinion. Now, maybe they break this out within it, they hear the board 5 of 20, but I would like to think that we matter, and that they would want and should have our input, no matter how they segment it off.
But that group, Mike, is not making decisions. They're presenting data for you to make decisions. And I go back to, I think, as Jackie said, you as a board will be the ones who will digest and interpret the results as it comes in and make decisions based on that.
Are we allowed at minimum, even if our names aren't on there, like is there a way to copy, like as a staff member, can you print it so we can at least read what is being asked
I
of
can,
them?
I will look into that tomorrow. I'm not.
I'm just curious
I'm just
as to
trying
what
to
is
figure out
actually
what the
being
best
asked.
route to go
Can I ask
is.
another question?
Because I think you had told us, that obviously this study is not just open enrollment, it's asking us other things on the district, about the district as well, correct?
Yes, that is.
So that, I'm just curious as to what else is on.
I will contact our contact tomorrow and see what I can get pulled together.
Thank you.
Couple of other items in my superintendent's report I would mention, and it was brought up earlier, all day, everyday kindergarten. We just really believe that all day, every day is a great way for us to take steps to establish the education that our students need as they come into the district. The third grade reading guarantee and the demands of that, and we're keeping a kid at third grade until they can read at a third grade level, even raises the bar a little bit. But the way for us to do that at no cost to our residents, to me, it is a great way to help move us towards our stated goal of getting into the top 5 and 5 now for 4 or 3.5, depending on how you look at it. But it is a step for us to take instructionally that it is well received and proven to be a good model. So expect more information on that in the coming meetings. Kindergarten registration has started this week, which is today. Still dealing with snow days and maybe dealing with those again, which is a good segue coming up to my next part. But we'll be looking at that, and people, some have been fairly, I would say, very positive so far in the reports of having the opportunity to, like was mentioned earlier, no cost all day, every day. Final thing, just for board's sake, and I copied you on one of the questions that came through the Because You Asked website. That Because You Asked, that has those questions that we've answered that have been submitted going back to October. The last one was what happens with contingent, or what happens with our calamity days. Right now, the House has passed, I believe passed, the full House has passed 4 additional calamity days for this year. The BASA, the State Superintendent's Association, was successful in adding another provision that talks about schools being able to add time to their day to make up if days beyond that are necessary. It's interesting though, because on the Senate side, there was a bill introduced for 3 days. So somewhere along the line, those two are going to have to come into agreement. As we look at that, it's important to understand that right now, we have 3 buildings who have used 8 calamity days. I'm sorry, yes, 8 calamity days, 3 beyond the limit. Lindsay, with the pipe bursting, is now at 9, which is 4 more than the current limit. So if one passes the Senate or the House, I know which ones they're pulling for. But it's also important to note that the weather coming in Tuesday is not very promising, calling for 6 to 10 inches Tuesday and Wednesday. So just more fun. Related to that whole concept, we continue to work, and I've been in contact with Mr. Booth on the 2014-15 calendar, which we will be shifting out of the required number of days into required minutes instead. And if you have questions on that, either the group or the board, there's a great answer that is prepared in that Because You Asked link, and it's posted there, and it gives links to other information. So at least I think it's great that I did. I haven't had anybody tell me not, so I'm still sticking with that. But that covers my report, Lester.
Yeah. If we, of course, we will have to go into either longer days or some extra days. What does that mean for our budget? We have to pay the teachers for this. No.
The concept behind it, the way calamity days are, basically it's viewed as the first 5 or 3 days, and then the others are days that you have to make up. So the concept is one that would likely require some discussion with the associations as we move through that, because it also impacts our classified staff as well. Changes in bus times, impacts on proctors, et cetera, all that has to come into play. So as we get some clarification from Columbus, and I'm optimistic of that happening soon, that's take some steps and work through that process. That was my best non-answer I could give.
Okay, before we get into, coming next will be director reports, right? That's all you have on your list. I just got one question before we go to everything. Were we supposed to have something on for Cross today?
I mean, I have it, but I didn't know.
There was discussion in the policy committee meeting. There was no determination of actual direction, or no stated plan for actual direction, other than bringing forward, and we have in the same committees, there'll be some conversation that report from Jackie and that we have a policy.
Because I know we had talked about having an answer for the 27th, 27th, got moved to see if she can answer it down in the background. I remember, that's why I'm bringing it up, because I just don't know, do we have that, do we plan to, as long as it gets addressed.
It would be covered under the standing committee.
Okay, great, thank you. I forgot. Good. So now we go to director's reports.
And I would, I guess, for sake of time, I have included in your packets the director's reports from the 3 central office staff who turned those in, coordinator and director's roles. Those are in your packets. And I know Nancy is going to be talking here in D, so I don't know if there were any specific questions or anything that either of you wanted to highlight outside of what may have already been talked about director-wise.
I guess I would wonder if you've read it, if you've got any questions that would help clarify anything. I'm trying in the reports to be informative as to types of things that we are using currently, keeping kind of up to date to what's happening.
And the goal of these, as Deborah said, is to bring you as board members up to speed to where we are with this, but at the same point, I don't want, I'll read between the lines of what she's not saying. If this isn't something of value to the board, please let us know and we can redirect their work into other areas.
I'm always intrigued to, my knowledge, so I would never tell you guys that I don't value your reports, because I don't know what you don't tell me. I think what you mean.
Sometimes we don't know until we see it. We go, oh gosh, God, we heard about that.
Okay, so
It's
I
better.
think that's what the 3 of us are trying to do, is getting new board members or giving the information that's.
I think
This is our professional development. We don't get,
Right.
other things, so this is the way that we learn, is by you guys presenting to us or giving us information, and then we know what to ask.
Unless there
If
was
you
like
need
a
more-
little committee meeting. that was also-
If you need more something different, that feedback would be valuable.
I think on my report, I just want to say, I think I talked a little bit last time about how much PBIS, cognitive behavior intervention supports, and that's really pushing forward very quickly, and I'm very proud of my team that's been working very hard on it, and a lot of things are in place that is going to be rolled out next year, hit the ground running, and it's going to be great for kids.
So the next one will be, we got assistant principals, right?
Yeah, WestGBrd, actually the entire district held professional development day on January 17th. And the entire high school staff worked together to create student learning objectives. And these objectives are going to be used to measure student growth as a tool that the state uses to measure student growth. It's more communication that, as many individuals like to use Twitter, the high school uses Twitter, our athletic department uses Twitter. Currently, our high school Twitter account is now posted on the district, on the high school page. newsletter was emailed out, building newsletter was mailed out February 16th. It should have been received by everybody that is in our contact list, and that's the parents that are uploaded into that system, the Blackboard Connect that we use to automatically find people. The testing, the students at West Geauga took, those students that needed to take the Ohio graduation test in the fall, took it, and the results were received last month, and they are being mailed out. The results are being mailed out to families, and also the results are mailed to the parents, to the teachers for analysis and look at in depth a little bit more of the standards that some of the students might be missing that still will need to take an additional test. Our Ohio teacher evaluation system, we're continuing to work through that, and teachers are currently being observed and walkthroughs are being conducted on all the teachers in the building, and report cards being mailed out. Supposed to be mailed out the 24th, however, with all the snow days and bringing, they were sent home with students on the 30th, January 30th. Oh, and one last thing, we do have new lights in the gym, they look great. Mr. Russo took care of that over the winter.
Green ribbon.
Oh, we were nominated for a green ribbon, and in fact, Mr. Supt will talk a little bit more about that. But we were nominated for an environmental award based on the things that we do here at West Geauga to conserve. And Mr. Supt actually did the work and work through that. And, so we are, I guess, one of three schools
statewide being nominated for national recognition for the green ribbon.
Blue ribbon, green ribbon.
I have a question for you, Mr. Bishop. I just noticed, I think I brought this up once before, but I was bringing it up again. You said building goals address increase the school performance index, demand excellence, growth, goals 20 reach, one, implementation for right? I know the board, last board, and I think for going over as something we want is to make sure that it becomes these building goals. Don't forget the top 10%.
Right.
Right? And I know I brought up once before, you told me at the time it's a building goal. How do we make this a more directed building goal, if I may? We as a board have said, yes, it's important to address the lowest 20%, but it was also one of our goals, which we would like to go down to the district to address that top 10. How do we get that on the chart from here on in?
Well, honestly, increase the school's performance index, that is, I do include that. That could be, we could list specifically as something that we are doing. And through the Ohio teacher evaluation system and walkthroughs, we are talking about, a big word that's being used is stretching all kids. So not just the students that are getting those A's, how are we taking those top percent that are getting those A's and allowing them to achieve it more? And increasing the school's performance index, that is something that I would include, looking at those top 10%. But as a building goal, that could easily be added and stated. But as a district, those are things that teachers are having conversations about in professional learning communities, as well as buildings where principals and administrators are talking to the teachers about on how to stretch all the kids, not just grow lowest numbers, but to maximize the performance of all the students in the capability of that school.
And I agree with that because I know that we talked about, we saw those charts of how it could move us up an index and just a point here if we, did the lowest and the top. But however, as a parent with kids in the school, I hear that a district initiative is to help the lowest and help the highest. What if my kid's in between there? I don't think that that's something I would personally like to advertise. I'd like to see it that way. We are going to grow everybody. Every single kid is going to grow this year.
Yes.
For each one. Because
the reason why I think that one was brought up at the time was because we often hear, don't forget my child, depending on where the child is on the grid. trying to get into the top 5%, actually, to return to the top 5%, that in order to do that, there were certain areas that need to be looked at, for example, rigor. And it's very hard to compete with those districts that are in the top 5% if we are not addressing such things, for example, the number of classes that we have. Those things that will help increase rigor and get the children to the next level. So I think it got some focus and intended focus. So if it's just a function of putting it on there for an A, they do. It was there for a reason. But I think it's getting us into some of what Nancy's going to be going into. Thank you. Other principals?
At the middle school, we've, very similar to Jay's report, obviously we did our PLC, our professional development day, in which the K-8 staff met together, which is very beneficial as we work towards creating our SLOs, or student learning objectives. One of the things we've been focusing on, as you talk about individual kids, is looking at where kids are and growing them from the point that they are so we can show growth for all children. Obviously, we're looking at the top and the bottom groups of kids. We're trying to drill down to individual kids as to where they were based on their 5th grade assessments, as well as, if you notice in my report, we also administered the COGAT, as well as the Explore test. The Explore test, for those of you that don't know, is an ACT-aligned assessment that we give to our 8th graders to see to it that we're growing kids in a method in which is in line with their college and career readiness, which is obviously something extremely important for all of our kids. Most of our core areas have finished up their curriculum maps and pacing guides, at least a skeleton of them, so we can move forward, because the dialogue needs to not move away from curriculum, but how curriculum interacts with children, and specifically the children that are in our building. And as you go to reach each one, we're looking at every single child in our building and seeing to it, to use the word, stretch each child to their maximum potential for the grade level that they're in. And for doing that, we're also looking at the middle school schedule, maybe parallel it towards something similar to the high school in the number of periods, time alignment, but that's all in the works in terms of whether or not that fits our needs. And just briefly, if you haven't entered the middle school from the side 6th grade doors, they've been replaced, courtesy of Mr. Russo, wherever he is. They replaced the panes of glass because we had some deterioration of the base, and they were replaced with a more solid, sturdy door, which we hope will last. It does look like it provides a little more of a safe atmosphere than just a pane of glass. So, a lot going on at the middle school, as always, as well as adolescents. Always something that's interesting.
Elementary principals, care to chime in?
On Professional Development Day, not only do we have a rollout of the SLOs, which is the student learning objectives, but that's where teachers will be setting goals that allow them to measure exactly what they want to achieve with students. And it's something that, for example, with the 3rd grade recent testing and the test results we got back in reading OAA, we already have looked at how we need to move each child along between the testing in October and the testing they'll take at the end of April in the area of reading. And so those are the things that even administrators are setting goals on, and so we have similar goals to move each and every child. In addition, Lindsay and Westwood staff had a great opportunity to have a lot of dialogue about the Common Core and the curriculum mapping they're doing. And it's great because when we get to be in the same place and have those discussions, it's very powerful. It's been a nice tool to do it online, but the face-to-face conversation was great, and we thought that the discussions really were productive. Other than that, just the keyboards received in both buildings with the iPads. That's going to help us with the hard assessments that we're going to be trying, our district was able to get some of our fourth and fifth grade, is it third, fourth, and fifth? I'm fourth and fifth. Yeah, just fourth and fifth grade trial testing, pretty much March through May, so that we get a preview of what these tests are going to look like. And some will be done online, but I know Mr. Bernacki will be doing a paper pencil one as well. So, anything else you want to say?
No, we got it.
Okay.
Good.
And just facility-wise, I know we've got the drop ceilings, I might mention at the last meeting, in some of the rooms and some more. Mr. Russo has arranged for spring break, correct? And so that included lighting, drop ceilings, and a much cleaner look, better acoustics in the classroom. And now we don't look at nails that hang down from the ceilings, so it's great.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
It says 3 staff members attended CPI training in January. Will that be relayed back to other staff members?
Okay, well, they have to have a core team of people on staff that can do crisis prevention, intervention, and they're specially trained to do that, and it's like a team. And so we need to refresh or have a certain group be trained on a regular basis.
So, but that certain group, do they share that information, or is it just for that group?
It's for that group. Anybody can elect to take that training, but through Deborah, we try to make sure we maintain a group of people that are able to respond appropriately in a crisis. It isn't just general crisis. It might be a student who has difficulty.
It's actually part of the GIS that we just go and have a group of people trained for that. Instead of just training us, we have out to talk to them. So it's very kind of
Just a couple of things that Mr. Russo sent me to Excel Tech to learn a little bit about plumbing, heating, and electric. And my little side job, I'm learning all kinds of things about.
Which is because we love Lindsay and we're making sure Lindsay.
Right, that it's all good and
do things on the roof and all this good stuff because we love Lindsay, right? Thank you.
getting trained all the right. Just to let you know that Wednesday is Technology Day, so if anyone would like, each class is going to do and showcase something in technology throughout the day. So that is on Wednesday.
The whole day?
Whole day.
Count me in.
No, we'll be in school. Close down the rest of them and just get our kids in there. No. And one of the things also through the evaluation system with teachers, we have PD 360, which is our walkthrough template. Through that template you can use, there's a video library. So it's a good thing for teachers if you see something going good or you don't see anything that you're looking for in a walkthrough, you can snip them to a little 5 to 10 minute video in regards to maybe instructional strategies or something there. So it's a great little snippet for their evaluation system. So we're kind of using that, and that's through PD 360. So he's kind of covered all the things that we've been doing.
Nancy, is that also isolated?
Whatever we do.
Sorry, breaks from breaks, man. Okay, Nancy, you're ready?
The crowd's getting restless.
They're throwing things at me already, I have first of all, I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you tonight about our technology needs. As Mr. Kilroy has mentioned, the district technology department has been
diligently working to put together for you a technology plan. Today, what you are going to see is really a very distinct and specified component of what will be a larger plan based on need and your request for information. Obviously, when you put together a district technology plan, kindergarten through 12th grade, you want to have things in it like a vision, a mission statement. You want to talk about replacement plans. You want to talk about forward buying and need in terms of curriculum and instruction. To that end, we are not going to cover all of those tonight. Tonight's idea is to drop knowledge on you in a way that does not overwhelm you, but in fact arms you to make some decisions for our district. And so this is by all means a chance for you to ask questions. It is a lot of numbers. It is a lot of data that will be presented to you. It has taken us a great deal of time because it is intensive in terms of numbers. And so stop me at any minute. Ask me questions. I would probably have been better at 9 a.m., but I'm going to do my best. So when you look at the way that we have begun one-to-one, which everybody in the room agrees one-to-one is an endeavor that is tantamount to what we feel like a success for our students. It is to be commended in its efforts. It is to be continued with specificity in terms of curriculum. And so part of what we're going to talk about today is flipping the lid of the lens K-12. So we have started one-to-one in elementary. So we are 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade one-to-one with iPads. So that is currently what our numbers dictate. And we're going to talk to you a little bit about making decisions going forward. So part of what I'm going to talk to you about today is testing, high-stakes testing that will come to us in the spring as a field test, next year as the real thing, live. And so part of what our numbers are going to talk about today are with testing in mind, because in an ideal world, we might talk about one-to-one differently than we will have to talk about one-to-one because of testing that is happening next year. So I give you that caveat to say that sometimes we make decisions on what is immediate, and there is immediate and pressing concern and need for our district to arm our students with the tools necessary to perform as well as we can offer them the chance to perform. I'm fairly passionate about it, so I'll try to dial her back a little bit so we can just take a look unemotionally at the numbers, and then I will probably ratchet up the passion a little bit and make a dying play at the end. So there we go. That's in full how it's going to go. Sean is going to talk to you a little bit. Sean Whalen, our technology director, is going to talk a little bit about more the instructional component. I'm going to talk more data and testing component. So when you look at the opening chart, the opening chart is an attempt to really break down numbers that are immediate in terms of immediate concern. So if you look at the high school, the middle school, and elementary as 3 audiences, see, boring people already.
No,
that's all right. One-to-one capacity. So when you talk about one-to-one capacity, we are talking about one-to-one capacity for our intents and purposes tonight, not simply as one-to-one a device per student, but one-to-one device meaning desktop and device per student in terms of test taking for PARC and next generation assessments. So when you look at that at the high school, right now we are running 840 student body, 195 device. That includes a broken down component that exists on the tail end of the packet I just gave you. So if you want to look at actual numbers of desktop and devices, which are 4 Chromebook carts for all intents and purposes, as well as some classroom labs, those numbers are broken down for you. But don't mire yourself in that, because I think it's easier to look at the top page for now. But those numbers have been provided to you, and I just wanted you to know that. Yeah, so if you look at capacity right now, we are operating at 23%. If you further look at it and look at them as learning centers, meaning when you have state classrooms of devices, you can't look at them as one-to-one because you have to have an assignment of classroom to class. meaning there are going to be some devices not utilized. So a truer number of that capacity is frankly 21%. So right now, in real time, we are running approximately 21% capacity 9 through 12th grade, okay? Using the same idea, ideally, at the middle school, we're running 40%. Again, that would be lowered if you looked at it in terms of center to student rather than device to student. But it's roughly 36 to 40%. 40% is at an optimum. When you look at elementary, because we've gone one-to-one, grades 3, 4, and 5, and we also have iPad carts, at each grade level, kindergarten through second, we are running at 84%, which is phenomenal. I mean, any district would tell you that is phenomenal, for sure. So when you're looking at capacity and you're looking at getting ready for high-stakes testing next year, which is going to be done online, as we hear right now from Ohio Department of Education, you have to look at testing capacity. So when you look at high school testing capacity, you would test in all four core classes, English, Math, Social Studies, and Science, 9th grade through 11th grade. So when you look at that number, 606 to 195 devices, you are looking at 9th through 11th grade students, 2 devices. So right now, testing capacity increases because we don't test at that senior year as it exists currently. So you look at 32% capacity there. The middle school remains the same. At elementary, our testing capacity becomes 100% because part and online next generation assessments happen 3 to 5th grade. So we are running at 100% capacity. Caveat, if we buy keyboards to plug into iPads. So I'm going to offer to you a pressing concern is not only that we have a class set of keyboards, but there is an absolute need with immediacy that we would run at least a class, full class, meaning 3rd grade, 180 keyboards we think would be sufficient number to run us at a pretty high capacity for testing purposes. The keyboards do not come cheaply. They're $57.50 per, meaning if you would arm yourself with 180 keyboards, you're looking at a price point of $10,000 for the keyboards. Yes, Jackie?
Keyboards, so you're saying for testing purposes only. Do we then rotate those keyboards for the next grade level? They will be switched?
Yes. When you are doing the high stakes testing provides you a window. Right now, it's looking like Park, there are 2 for Park. Park is English, Language Arts, and Math. Next generation assessments, because it's Ohio State curriculum, is called, that's what we're calling next generation social studies and science. Okay, so that's why you're hearing both terminology. Ohio, the state OD, is calling all of it next generation assessments, but Park is a consortium putting together ELA and Math. So when you're looking at ELA and Math, ELA for the performance-based assessment, you look at 2 separate testing periods. I told you it was going to be a lot of information dropped right there, so you have to dial me back and slow me down. So when you're looking at the first inundation of the spring testing in March, ELA, English Language Arts, is given in 3 sections, meaning just to take the singular performance-based assessment, students will have to have 3 separate sittings to take that assessment. In math, it's 2. And then it's 1 for social studies and 1 for science. So part of when you break all of this testing down in capacity, you have to look at creating a testing schedule and what it would look like in terms of real time. In terms of real time, if we had a grade level keyboard and a 15-day window, that would be plenty of time, even for all of the multiple sittings, to make sure that we had ample time for our elementary. It gets a little bit more problematic, just so you know, when you get to middle and high school.
I guess so, and I don't want to downplay, I screamed it, I don't want to downplay that I want less, but I'm just for the sake of true numbers. If you're saying a grade level, and in each building, we don't have 90 kids in 3rd grade and 90 kids in each building at Westwood and Lindsay combined. And currently, you've just told us that they each have 30 keyboards, correct? You got 15, you're getting 15 more. So if you deduct 60 from the total enrolled in 3rd grade, why is it still 180?
You offer a great question, because here's something that I would offer to you. Best practices would suggest that you do not want, particularly a 3rd, 4th, or 5th grader, to double sit in a day for a high stakes test. You really don't want it in high school either. I would offer you that, so high school people you know, check yourselves, but I mean, it would be more likely or more typical at a secondary level than it would be at elementary. So part of the caution is you want to offer enough of a window and enough of the devices that you can have a singleton high stakes test in a day.
I think part of what she's saying is the number for Lindsay's wrong. The 92, there shouldn't be 92 iPads for the 5th grade. There were 92 that were possibly at Westwood, and Lindsay had 7.
No, I was just trying to clarify because at one sentence you said what we would really want for immediate is as long as we had one full grade, we would be okay. And that number doesn't reflect just one full grade. That's higher than just one full grade.
Higher than one full grade, yes.
Well, in that case, I have a problem.
My question is, if we get these, we don't have them, will we have them, I'm assuming we won't have them for every iPad though.
No.
And will the kids be familiar enough with them? Are we able, maybe this is a question for Sean, but will the kids get enough familiarity with them that they'll be able to really?
It's a great question. So there's two, I mean, again, I told you I'm going to give you kind of the down and dirty testing prep to get us ready to take the test, and then best practice. They're not always married to each other. Sometimes they're fighting and on the brink of divorce, and perhaps best practice right now is a little bit in flux in that optimally you would have 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade go live with keyboards because obviously you want to offer students plenty of practice in the manner and method of testing in order for ultimate performance. So yes, that's a piece of the puzzle that we have to struggle with.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's okay. I'm sorry.
We wanted to have, there was input from the audience, we gotta get through this.
Oh,
You're
gotcha.
actually going to have almost 2 full grade levels, correct? Because if they each have 30 and they're each going to get 90 more, that's 120, and you're looking at like 140 in there. So it'll be pretty close to 2 full grade levels.
Hopefully. When you look at the high school, pardon me, the second page of your packet is to do a proposed testing schedule. So when you look at doing a high school testing schedule, we did it with 2 high stakes tests, within a day. Again, it is not optimum, but it would be more typical. You would not want to have more than 2 high stakes tests or students sit for 2 high stakes tests. Number 1, students are being measured by their performance, obviously. Number 2, teachers are being measured by their performance for their evaluations. Number 3, our district is measured by their performance. So you want to create an environment for optimal testing conditions for students to do well. If you would look at our numbers at high school and a 2-a-day testing schedule, okay, you have to look at the number of testing sections per grade level content area versus the number of centers we have available. So when you do that math and you look to those numbers, if you look at giving math and English, math with 2 different sittings, English with 3 different sittings for the first round of the performance-based assessment in March, it would take us 14.8 roughly days to give math and English, not touching science or social studies. So we don't have the capacity right now to give PARCC and next generation assessments at the high school level. At the middle school level is
that your $43,880 number to get you where you need to be able to do that?
It would get us to 4 Chromebook carts, which would make it possible. It would make it possible. I'm not telling you it would make it optimal, but I would tell you it makes it possible. When you look at the middle school, by adding 2 Chromebook carts, the middle school is a very similar need. It's just not as immediate and pressing as is high school. High school is of grave concern immediately. The middle school, if you would add 2 Chromebook carts, by adding all of those, then we start to run at a more feasible number, 51%. Again, this is testing, not 51% of student to device ratio at the high school. It's still much lower at the high school. This is just because the senior class doesn't count in terms of the testing. So that is as black and white as we can try to make it for you in terms of the need for testing. I do want Sean just to have a few minutes to talk to you a little bit more to Mr. Katowski's question about optimum teaching and what is best practice in terms of that. And I do want you to hear at least a smidge of that. So, Sean?
Before we get there, real quick, though.
Yes.
Because I would like somebody, answer.
Go ahead, Sean.
What is our, I would like to finally have a replacement plan, annualized number. Talk to ODE, they say 4, 5, 6. We've got permanent improvement that says 5. We've got technology that has a half-life of about 6 weeks if you start to look at things these days. What is the number that we need to use to at least try to plan? I've been asking for this since 2008. So that we can have a number, just try to calculate what it is, and then budget for it. Whether we hit it or not, I don't know, but I'd like to have that number. And I would hope the rest of the board, I know Jackie, you were asking once upon a time about how many computers we have.
I'm just really happy to see how many freaking devices we have for the love of God.
Well, it's a slippery slope. I mean, it's hard to come up with actual working, amenable devices. I mean, that is tricky. I would say this, absolutely, Mr. Kilroy, that is our intent. I think that the district committee, technology committee that you have in place is absolutely determined to come up with a technology plan for the district. In the short term, you wanted numbers of the next move that we need to make as a district, K to 12, for our students. These are the next moves that have to be made for our students to get them ready for testing. When you, in terms of a technology plan, absolutely, that's a component that has to be addressed, not only replacement. I would say how we're going to decide what new devices are needed and timelines accordingly. So there's a lot that has to go into place to a technology plan. In the immediate future, this is what we have for you.
I'm just going to hand these out now for Sean to get a chance. I heard Brenda say, and I explode, lacking technology. I think we have a pretty good amount of technology in different spots. And I see Chagrin Falls win 2 of the first ever Best Tech Awards, and I don't know how they're getting those things when we're not either in the ballot or the whatever. And you know, Chagrin Falls to thank those that make a difference as far as whatever it is. I mean, there are things that are going on out there right now that we were ahead of, and we may not be anymore. So we need to get back on track. I think it's very important because they're working the system, whatever that is, whether it's newspaper systems or.
I guess I would say, and I could offer it both as a response to your question and as an intro to my next segue, but I would tell you I think the best decision you've made is to hire Sean Whalen, who brings a level of expertise from the classroom as well as a level of expertise in technology. And I think through his lens and his vision and the district team that you've put together, I think that that is the direction we're headed. But things have to be put in place, and I just think really a lot of pieces of the puzzle that you have begun have to be streamlined and forward-thinking. And I would agree with you. I think we are forward-thinking, and our desire is to continue in that vein. So,
one of the areas when we met that we had to start looking at beyond testing was instruction. When we have these devices, what are we going to do with them beyond just the test? How are we going to get them prepared for the test? The Common Core standards outline rigorous content expectations with the intent to make all students ready for life in a technological society. They do not treat technology as a separate strand of content, but rather incorporate expectations of technological proficiency throughout the content standards. The need to use technological tools effectively is embedded in every aspect of today's curriculum. These are just a few little things from the Common Core standards. To be ready for college, workforce training, and life in a technological society, students need the ability to gather, comprehend, evaluate, synthesize, and report on information and ideas. To conduct original research in order to answer questions or solve problems, and to analyze and create a high volume and extensive range of print and non-print text in media forms old and new. The need to conduct research and to produce and consume media is embedded into every aspect of today's curriculum. In like fashion, research and media skills and understanding are embedded throughout the standards rather than treated as a separate section. Students need to be self-directed learners, effectively seeking out and using resources to assist them, including teachers, peers, and print and digital reference materials. Students who are college and career ready employ technology thoughtfully to enhance their reading, writing, speaking, listening, and language use. They tailor their searches online to acquire information efficiently, and they integrate what they learn using technology with what they learn offline. They are familiar with the strengths and limitations of various technological tools and mediums, and can select and use those best suited to their communication goals. New technologies have broadened and expanded the role of speaking and listening play in acquiring, sharing knowledge, and have tightened their link to other forms of communication. The internet has accelerated the speed at which connections between speaking, listening, reading, and writing can be made, requiring that students be ready to use these modalities nearly simultaneously. Technology itself is changing quickly, creating a new urgency for students to be adaptable in response to change. There's a shift in rigor because of the core, where students are being asked for application, crunching data, and analysis. Instant collaboration with peers locally and worldwide is already a part of student interaction through many of the devices that they use outside of our educational environment. We are a digitally connected society in the business world as well. We need to be able to help students understand digital ethics and how to use these in a way that will assist them to excel as learners. We need to grow a critical evaluation of digital sources. There is an immense amount of digital resources presented online by a wide variety of sources. Who created the web resource? How long has it been posted? Is it 1 year, 5 years, 10 years? Is the information out of date? Is it still relevant? What is the background of the author? On a deep level, questioning the credibility and usefulness of the resource are essential skills for today's secondary students as they move towards college and career readiness. With the current technology numbers at the secondary level, particularly at the high school, it's very hard for all the students to get close to that kind of contact in an equitable way. With these resources that they need in order to be properly prepared for addressing these types of challenges. It would also be immensely difficult for teachers to effectively integrate these skills into their lessons without reliable access to the technology. We are preparing all of our students for a life after high school that will require them to be technologically proficient. The old phrase, "I'm not that good with computers," will not be acceptable to our students. We need to teach our students a set of technology skills that will be applicable to any college or career that they choose. We need accessibility across the district to do that. That's kind of what our conversations have been leading to, not just for testing purposes, but where instructionally our teachers need to take our students, which is a lot of what's been addressed today as well, as far as our concerns with stretching and pushing our students forward at all levels.
So we'll ratchet up the passion a little bit. I mean, Sean and I are pretty passionate about it, pretty passionate about technology and instruction for sure. But I think that apart from the testing need, which is glaring, I would tell you that the capacity at the high school in terms of, if you look at just say the sections of English that we have currently serving English 1, 2, and 3, not seniors, we have 25 sections of English and 4 Chromebook cards. That means if you were in the 9th or 11th grade, once a month you might get your hands on a computer. I mean, that just, the need is so relevant in terms of college and career readiness. We only have a slice of time left to get them prepared, and I think that we have to ethically really look at those numbers with immediacy, and that's part of what we wanted to talk with you about tonight, but also in an unemotional way, honestly, just to give you the numbers so you can think about it and kind of take some time with them and certainly continue the conversation.
Okay, let me look, hopefully this will help everyone, because I appreciate that. Thank you very much, Sean. Thank you very much. As you know, I've been walking rooms, counting computers, turning stuff in. Roughly speaking, you've got your cost estimate to do your initial attack plan of about $76,000-ish. We as a board also have to think about how do we advertise our district to differentiate our district from others. We now have a Blue Ribbon High School, that's one of the things for us to advertise to get people who are out here. The one-to-one initiative, everybody's talking it, we've been doing it. money that was spent at the elementary level was to make sure it's clear, came from outside donations. So if we were actually going to take the amount of money that the school has spent in each sector, the elementaries would be somewhere in the 10%, 5% rate because they were fortunate enough to have Santa Claus. So what I'm looking at here and what I've been looking at also is for gathering information. I asked, financially speaking, you're looking for $76,000. Well, for starters, I'm just trying to figure out what's in our budget to be able to spend on technology. And one of the things that we have to do, and I don't know if you guys have the number, I hope you do, if you don't, it's okay. It's very difficult to get the numbers out of the district, even if you're a board member of the district, wherein trying to find out how much is available, it looks like, as best as I can figure, that there's 1, 2, 3, 4 emails, roughly 40,000 unencumbered balance for technology in our technology budget. That's my understanding possibly, right? This is something Dan can get a chance to look at. I do know, but that's not the number. I do know that we have a PI out there right now, Mr. Russo. I've got your information from 5/18/2012 that says of the existing mill that we have technology replacement equipment district, right? That's $50,000 more. And that's this year and for next year. I do know that we just had a multi-million-dollar roofing levy, and in it was $880,000 associated with other items to be done. And there's $100,000 in technology in that area. So that's 100 plus 50 plus 40-ish. Last time my math is a bigger number than $76,000 that we need immediate, for the immediacy to attack our problems. And my question is, what are we doing talking about what we need to get done when we should be getting it done because the voters gave us the money to spend to get it done? That's my problem. And so I would like to make a motion to amend the agenda. Did we do this one, Dan? Counselor, I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda to discuss the purchasing of technology, which will be the second motion.
Yeah, it would be the same procedure that
We just
Mr.
did on
Wilson
the last
described when you wanted to talk about the Alumni Association.
Correct. I'm making a motion to amend the agenda to discuss technology. Is there a second? Is there any discussion? Can we call the roll, please?
This is your dream list, right?
I think it's I don't know if I would say it's a dream list. I think it is, in a rote way, honestly, what we need to go forward next year for testing. To have a testing situation that is in our kids' best interest.
This sounds like a rather minimal list, actually.
Don't we have to, this is a motion,
Let's
don't we have to finish the motion before we do
This discussion is look at it.
All right, and we reduce this down to a minimum that we work for testing, rather than for curriculum purposes.
Yes.
Well, I also think that because, like she's saying, this is just testing. Phase 2, we also know, even through policy, that we're trying to work on some curriculum devices in the high school. If we do a survey of how many kids actually have a device they're able to bring, I don't think that number is prepared yet. This is just for testing only. Getting to one-to-one in the high school and or even the middle school after we phase it down could be a lot less than what we actually need because there are kids out there with devices they can bring to school. They can't use those devices for testing, which is hence why we have this number, but they can use those for tool purposes.
Yeah. Now, this number, though, for testing is going to impact us because it's not the optimal number. It means that kids have to take 2 high-stakes tests a day. Very, very non-optimal. The second thing is it means that we have a minimal number of keyboards, so kids won't have those keyboards accessible to them all the time. So I would see that if we have some additional money, and I'd actually like Mr. Wilson to get to the bottom of that, what money we do have. I mean, I could see us increasing this so our kids would have more hands-on time.
That's the next one.
And so forth.
That's going to be the next one. First, we're just trying to get the motion motion to have.
May I offer something else for your discussion purposes? Yes, in terms of, this is wrote in terms of device. I would also tell you that there are spots in all 4 of our buildings that would have to be addressed in terms of Wi-Fi, that there will be a cost associated with that, numbers of which I don't have, but I can get for you. But there are certainly spots that we would want to take immediate concern with to make the best use of the devices that we have. Also, because it's online testing, that has to be done pretty immediately.
Okay. If I might, and
Yes.
listen, I've listened to you guys all night. I have one question.
Okay?
Thank you. This was your list.
Mhm.
So what you see is just the union. We spent a lot of money on technology at this point, and we're probably not utilizing it the best we can. That's why you're asking for keyboards and different things so that we can, right? Okay. So, in a perfect world, what does that number look like? There's no, I mean, it's kind of a tough number to get to.
Mhm.
Okay. So this is, to Ben's point, this is the minimum. Testing twice, which is not what would be in the best interest of the district. Our numbers might be lower than what we want them to be, and it might not be, that's for our kids. What if it was, and again, I know that probably that requires you to go back, what if it was 1 test per day? What would that look like?
I would have to go back. It would probably be at least double, if not triple that number, frankly, because when you're talking about at the high school, you have to talk about the sections that we're offering of each core content area subject, as well as the centers available. So you might, the device number goes out the window. It doesn't matter anymore. It's how many places to how many sections. That's how you would do a high school test schedule, pardon me, which I can do. Because if you want to go Dream World, I'm all about, I'm living the dream right now, absolutely. It would be substantial and an increase in cost, I can tell you that much, but I don't want to give you non-factual information, so I can have that for you Wednesday for your retreat, if that would be okay.
Because this is just the tip of the iceberg.
Correct.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I would see the way this work, because I think we ought to look at substantially increasing over this recommendation, because it's a key part, I think, of the 5 and 5 initiative. We want our kids to do as well as they can on the tests, and that means we ought to get this report before we allocate any money, and then we should move on and take the recommendations and debate them so that we can do what we feel we really need to, and also ask Mr. Wilson to give us an idea of what kind of money we actually have to.
As if they are, I understand you looked them up, but are these the hard numbers? Is there more or less?
There's more.
Okay, but that's just it.
Yeah, no, and so what I would like to do is this, with all due respect, I appreciate everything you did. I would have rather had better numbers preparation for this, because that's versus having to put it up. I really don't like, because we only meet, because we're lucky to have one next Monday, but we only meet twice a month, and therefore if we don't act from month to month, as a 8% of the children's educational year, that's an enormous waste of time in my book. If I ask anybody in here, please give back 8% of your salary, it becomes a very important subject. I don't want to waste if we can pass that. So I was prepared, still am prepared, because we do know the numbers that are coming in for our PI, because Mr. Russo put them together, he's done an exceptional job. We do know the numbers that are in there for our roofing levy, and as a matter of fact, the numbers have come in much better as far as our initial Westwood roofing. Granted, it can change later on. But we have tax dollars to go and buy things. So I believe that the board becomes part of the driver of getting things done. Because eventually people will say, what have you all done? So I would like to, I guess.
She said she'd be up by Wednesday by our retreat.
And then we
Right.
can do
have your numbers by then.
Right, and if we can go down
Okay.
on next Monday, and
That's
that's a
fair.
week out.
Because then.
Okay, so we could
I
do
appreciate
that.
what you did. You did, just looking at what you didn't give your ideas.
Well, no. But, well, no, frankly, I thought I would get this because it is so clearly in the best interest of kids. I think this is I tried to give you a list that makes sense in terms of a short-term solution to a very long-term problem. Well, that would be even better, because I will accept any money we would like.
What's important though, staff, is to make sure everybody, we're doing a project like this, you need to know the numbers. You need to know what's real, so that you can say, this is reasonable or this is pipe dream. And it's very important for the staff to have given you those numbers so that you would at least know what's real. That's not your fault. Somebody's got to get it to you, okay? And whether the quarterback is of that effort or wherever.
Well, I think Mr. Wilson and I need to spend some time together. Mr. Wilson, is it a date? Mr. Wilson, I know we have just met, but I feel like I need a lot of
I need
information.
some guidance from the board. If you want me to come back with how much money is available to spend on technology, I've got $9 million.
That's your cash out there.
If a board decision in the context of doing the annual appropriations place a priority on instructional technology and spend your budget, then the next issue is, are we going to budget for the opportunity or the true cost of ownership or simply the initial purchase cost? Are we going to include the annual licensing fees, depreciation, getting ready for that? Are we going to have a separate replacement schedule, as you suggested, Mr. Hill, right? And then that all fits into the bigger scheme of there is $9 million, you could spend it all right now, and then we're operating on a shoestring. What does that mean for the non-instructional technology portions of the operation of the school district? What does that mean as far as future revenues available to support what we're already doing? So I'm going to need, I can crunch any kind of numbers you want, but to do that, I need some guidance, and I would respectfully suggest the first step is whether it's a wish list, whether it's a reality list of the two components you've discussed tonight. The one component is what's it take to comply with the testing that's coming up. The second component is being this discussion about where you want to go with instructional technology and increasing that use, whether it's devices in students' hands, whether it's the internet connectability in those spotty areas. Where is that? So, my understanding of this year's budget is right with what Mr. Kilroy said as far as funds that are available this year. What funds are available next year becomes a priority decision by the board as we're developing next year's appropriation. So, for me to simply say, this is how much money you can spend, that's solely my judgment, and that's not fair because I don't have the guidance of the board. I don't have a knowledge of what's the cost to do everything. If we know the cost of everything we want to do, then we can come up with a financial strategy to fund it. Whether it's with existing revenue, whether it's with grant monies, whether it's with reprioritizing current spending.
Okay, Wednesday, right? So how about we do this? What I'd like you to have for Wednesday, if possible, please.
Okay.
That everybody would at least give us some thought. It's a good, better, best list. You decide, is this your good? Is it your better? Where it fits on a good, better, best? Put some numbers on it, please. Dan, just so you know, we do have the PI levy. Mr. Russo could fill you in for the roofing thing with the $100,000. That was.
He's been kind enough to share some.
Okay, and then we have our 1 mil PI that we have out there annually that has dollars earmarked. And then we have our general fund and what might be in the general fund as possible, just as the technology line item and any extras that might be available to at least be able to discuss a good, better, best. So that way, we'll make the board to be thinking about if we want to compete or be perceived as competing with the better schools, the top 5% schools, we as a board have got to lead, not necessarily always be surveyed or directed as to what might be going. If we see things that are out there, if other people are doing things that make sense and are leading the way, let's get high up behind it, because otherwise we're just a follower in the school district, and I don't want to be that. And so that's where
I have one little final question. The need says immediate. Are we talking like as soon as we okay it, you're going to purchase so that they can start practicing with the spring test? Okay, but the high school and the middle school are not doing the practice test, are they?
Everybody at every
Every
grade
single,
level
okay.
has some component for practice,
So
yes,
we
but
need
the
to be
idea
able
for
to-
the keyboards for the spring inundation is pretty immediate.
We should be making a decision next Monday. The board needs to determine it.
We have to write it down.
Well, no, just to discuss, and so we did. So, Counselor, we need to just.
All right, you're gonna withdraw the motion. You had a motion in a second. I don't know how, if we follow Robert's rules of order.
Sorry.
So it's not on market, you withdrew the
Okay.
motion in a second.
We withdraw the motion. Anybody want to second it? Second. Okay. All right. So then, sorry, that takes us to, thank you, Nancy, thank you.
Yes,
So
thank
John,
you, thanks for the opportunity,
thank you.
appreciate it.
That takes us to the standing committee discussions, reports, we're scheduling, Jeff, do we have any? Standing committee reports that we need to do, I don't see any.
Policy.
Am I the only one? Kind of tense. Okay, so Jeff and I met talking about several different policies that we have within interscholastic athletics and club sports and so on and so forth. I believe it is our intent to move forward with this, not only with lacrosse, hopefully immediately, but to continue for the rest of the year to make sure that we can instill that we are allowing other club sports for the 14-15 school year. Jeff has looked at, I believe, Kenston was it? One of Kenston's policies for revising our current policies on interscholastic athletic teams and the things that we need to do to be able to make sure that we're following through correctly. I know some of the questions were, with the OHSAA, and I'm glad to see that on this policy, you also have or WestGs. I appreciated that in there as well.
And one thing, just along that line, if I could just jump in here, Jackie, B1 in this revised policy that is floating out, I think for clarity and to meet the needs of the fact that some of our club sports don't necessarily compete, in fact likely don't compete in the conference with which WestGB is affiliated, I would propose that where it says by the conference with which WestG is affiliated, we simply change to by a conference with which WestG is affiliated. That would then be clear that it isn't, we may be affiliated with multiple leagues.
Is that because all schools don't have lacrosse within our?
I mean, lacrosse is associated with a group, hockey is with a different group. So as you deal with that, that would be a simple way to address that variety.
February 24th.
Sorry?
February 24th.
Thank you.
Jeff, the one thing that I didn't see on here, and I don't know if that's for the future, or maybe it is on here, I just missed it. I thought I read this several times. We had discussed about, I know that, but it kind of streamlines with all of it, is even with supplementals that come along, about having accountability. And I know that, and I don't know if this just covers it by being broad. Where's it at? You have a very broad statement in here about need to find it, maybe you can help me find it once I tell you what I'm talking about. Accountability with accounting and auditing, and that somewhere down the list we would possibly move to all supplemental accounts, basically club sports I'm talking about, not the different ones, the club sports.
I think in general, what we're really looking at here is kind of a two-step process. What we have right now is we have a lacrosse club, we have a hockey club, we have those outside groups, we have, you know, a gridiron club, we have a variety of things that in a couple of step process. What the goal is here is to first of all address lacrosse as a seemingly reasonably easy process to bring in a club sport, make it a school sport, deal with the other club sports down the road, but then the bigger picture becomes getting some alignment of all those support organizations, which is in a completely different policy, but dealing with how do we deal with lacrosse club and funds and hockey club and funds? Do we conceivably come up with a master booster organization? You know, just different ways to look at it that are conversations to be had later where action could be taken here to address a real situation.
Can we get lacrosse voted on by the town? Is that the goal?
Well, you have to change this policy, so you have to waive the 3 readings, correct? In order to do that, because this is a new policy, or a change to a policy, we would have to waive the 3 readings, and then approve it that way, and then we have to approve lacrosse as a, or is that just a your call?
I don't know that lacrosse in and of itself would need to be the next step. I think there are some, Mr. Booth and I have had some preliminary conversations about the, you know, the discussion of coaches' stipends and that kind of stuff. So there's some little things that need to be worked out, but I don't know that the act, well
it
we
says
already
here,
recognize it.
it says
I'd have to
creation of new
consult with
programs
Mr. Gardner
of
on
any
it.
scholastic athletics must receive board approval. That's why I'm saying that. It's
Yeah, I'm
on-
trying to think what we did, because there is a card that's voted on in the summer that says what sports you recognize that cover that piece, because that's for OHSA liability. But we could certainly work through those steps by the town, I believe. The first step would be the change in this policy, but then it would require, you know, the coaches and all that other stuff that can certainly be.
I'm just confused in that. I mean, this says all the company, what's the realistic timeline? Is it realistic that if everything worked out perfectly, is it realistic that you guys would be connections or we are in the process? Is it realistic they would start on February 24th or is that not?
February 24th is the beginning of practice, correct?
That's
Is that
beginning of
practice or
practice.
is that conditioning?
Is that preseason? Conditioning for a week, and then we'll go into our preseason.
So
We
March
are
1,
set.
yeah,
We
March
could.
1 is the official practice date start for technical spring
Oh, yeah.
sports. Some of these are, you know, what we're facing is a little bit of the issue, for example, in lacrosse. It's not an OHSAA sponsored sport where they communicate those official start dates. So we're dealing with something that's a little bit in the fray. So realistically, the hurdles that we're facing are simply discussions with the union, agreeing on a number, and then dealing with the coaching situation and getting those people approved. And even in the other part of that is by board policy, you grant the superintendent the authority to employ people prior to board action so that they can start working. So it is very realistic. Is it a tight timeline? Absolutely. Is it one that has been confounded by the weather? Along with everything else. But lacrosse has been, you know, they've been great in communicating, and we've worked to get to this point. And you know, I appreciate their patience, not only in the process, but tonight as well.
Jeff, can I ask you, is the current coach a current staff member? No. So do you foresee any union issues because do we not have to offer our supplementals or no?
Technically, all positions have to be posted for benefits by contract.
We should be
That could be waived in certain.
We should be okay.
We should. I'm sorry, I just.
No,
I'm
no.
trying to think of everything, I'm sorry if it.
Sorry for speaking out of
But-
turn,
But our provisions, the contract provisions do allow waiving in circumstances based on approval of the association.
Well, I just didn't want to all of a sudden this happen and we
I
think
got
we're
it.
floating and then all of a sudden someone goes, well, I want that position and.
If they become a varsity sport, do they have to join a new league or conference, or are you going to stay in the same one? And
So
So it'll be a seamless thing, you simply become part of it?
It is nothing to do with the schedule other than the creation of the schedule moving forward. The schedule exists. It would simply be, they get a school letter. I mean, in effect, in addition to financial funds and things like that that would be worked out.
Is that the main goal, to be able to be sponsored by the school financially?
Right now, we cannot pay our coaches. So, I mean, we're all set. Everything is, we're ready to go. All we need to know is, are we going to become a school sport or not? Because we cannot, our current coaches, they're all waiting for us to give them the final word of saying, yes, you will coach this year. Who knows what's next year, but we need an answer to move forward right now. And right now, the coaches, we cannot pay them.
So there's a
So we
dollar
have no-
amount that has to be paid to these coaches? Is it? I mean, there's, okay, so is that?
I would tell you the numbers that we have talked about are consistent with, would
That's
fit
what I
into
was
our
thinking.
salary schedule reasonably well. It is nothing that would be
Exorbitant or? Okay.
way out of line.
Okay,
It
thank you.
fits in reasonably well, and it might even be a little bit of a bonus for the coaches, actually, is depending on where they end up on that schedule.
I have one last question.
That's strictly budgeted?
What I would, I mean, the details that we would work out, I mean, right now, the uniforms have been purchased by the lacrosse club. Likely,
What kind of do financial budget besides?
there will be, I mean, there will be additional costs that will need to be looked at over time in relation to fees. One of the things in the next step of this, we're gonna need to look at, do we stay with an overall fee, or do we start targeting sports and specific fees based on demand? And that's why we're dealing with the
You're saying
process.
pay to play without using pay to play as a term.
Well, I mean, we already do. I mean,
We
right
pay
now,
to
high
play
school's
right
making
now.
$190.
No, but what we're trying to say is you pay $190 and you're the whole year. What we're trying to say is, well, if we take in hockey, we can't just say it's $190 and if that becomes one of our sports, because it costs them $1,000 plus to play hockey. We need to assess each individual sport in the cost per se, because we can't absorb all of these other sports that are.
We're trying to work through a way that is fair to the organizations that have been long-standing and served our kids well, bringing them into the fold, but yet not putting a drain on the district's resources as we do.
Thanks, Jim. Anything else on policy?
Well, no, I just, because I had the chance to.
I'm sorry, I'm not quite clear. So are we gonna vote on this by the 10th? Can we expect a?
The only way that we can vote on this is whenever we have an addition or a change to a policy. Our current policy says we have to have 3 readings.